I'm Jeffrey Lewis. I'm here with Seth Faergolzia. We're on the banks of some river in Bristol, England. We just played a show on this boat behind us. So Seth, I've known you for many years, 16 years, something like that, and I was at some of your earliest performances at SUNY Purchase at the Cave, which was an open mic in the basement of the Humanities building, where I used to hang out a lot and see the performances, and started performing there, and you would perform there a lot. What do you think was important, if anything, or integral to the development of your sound about the Purchase College environment that we were in? The Purchase College where we went was a very cheap, upstate New York, liberal arts college, not that many students, nothing to do, but people like Seth, Regina Spektor, Langhorne Slim, Dan Deacon, Wooden Wand, a lot of people.
Jeffrey Lewis.
A lot of people that we knew there in this kind of middle of nowhere, very unrespected, nothing kind of little college. Somehow a lot of people went on to achieve musical success, and Seth was kind of an inspiration to a lot of these people. But what are your feelings about that time at Purchase and your development in that time?
I would say, one of the big things that impacted me was Silent Game, which was something I did with various groups of people, turning off the lights in a room and pressing record on a tape recorder. At that time, the very first time we did it, I suggested the idea we just go into this room and record ourselves sitting silently, and it was funny. We sat there silently for a while, and then little peeps and other noises, fidgets would turn into music, and I started to realize that darkness, like no light, lack of light, helped to open the ears, which was a big piece of, and also the interaction of sound and word between people. It's a big aspect of what Dufus did, improvisationally at least.
Were there other things happening around Purchase at the time that fed into that? Because it seemed to me that, like, Dufus itself, when you started around 1996, it seemed like Dufus was the driving force that inspired a lot of creativity in other people, which it seems to me like the whole Wham City scene in Baltimore is the direct descendant of the Dufus atmosphere and inspiration, and even some of the other orbital characters, Jack Dishel, who ended up in the Moldy Peaches and An Only Son, and Stiplicon. There was a certain... it seems to me like the sort of experiments that you're talking about have ripples in these other people's creativity. How do you feel about that? Was that something,
I'm flattered that you think that. I don't really know if I did have those effects on people, or if we were all just affecting each other. I was certainly inspired by those people as well. Dan Deacon, who you say, like Wham City, yeah, it does have a similar feeling, but I feel like we all came up with that feeling together. And it was a really magical combination of ingredients of people at Purchase during that stretch of time.
Right, but you were doing that first before those guys even started there. It's sort of that set the tone on which, when those people started coming to school there. I remember seeing Langhorne Slim at an open mic at the Cave, and it seemed like he was like a new student, and he was like, this is the place where crazy creativity happens, and sort of seeing his own brand of that come up there. Yeah. Because like the environment was already kind of attuned to that.
Yeah.
Now, what about leaving SUNY Purchase and becoming involved in the New York City anti-folk scene and the Lower East Side surf reality atmosphere? How much do you think Dufus changed when you left the little liberal arts school and moved to this area of the big city?
Definitely gained a harder edge in New York City. I lived in a really cheap little tiny room in the basement of a house in Brooklyn, East Williamsburg. And I was paying such low rent that I was capable of promising myself to never get another job in '98. And I didn't get a job, and I worked a lot harder on my music because I promised myself that. And I still struggle as a musician, professional musician, but I still do it. It's like, 15 years later, something like that. 13 years later. But yeah, New York also allowed, we did the fun wearing underwear at Surf Reality, and we were allowed to be free and experiment with theater and highly improvised, surreal theater.
Surf Reality was a space upstairs on Allen Street where Seth and sometimes dozens of other people would perform every Saturday night at midnight for weeks on end. Seth's fun-wearing underwear, semi-improvised rock opera, also called Funderwear for short, which would have opening sets from the Purple Organ. I remember Adam Green being there.
Kimya Dawson.
Kimya Dawson
was in the show.
Regina Spektor was probably there. Dan Deacon, all of these people, and a lot of other people who, have other parts in the art and music and film world of New York City. But at that time, you were living in a basement across the street from Surf Reality, and I remember.
For a time, we were living in that basement.
I was there for 6 weeks, and it was pretty intense.
Is that all it was, 6 weeks?
It was 6 weeks. It felt like 6 years. Well, I remember you saying something about how some of those performances were such pinnacles. But you've had a lot of different pinnacles in different ways with different lineups of people and different environments. Off the top of your head, maybe give me 1 or 2 or 3 performances or environments where you felt like this is it, I've really nailed it, because I've seen you really nail it, like to the pinnacle of any artistic achievement in human history. And I think anybody in those rooms now, this may sound like I'm being overly flattering, but I think it's true, and the people in those rooms would agree. I would hasten to add that I myself have been capable of that on occasion.
Was there a question in that?
The question was, give me a couple of your situations, your favorite performances where you felt like these were like what Seth Faergolzia and Dufus was always meant to be about, and tonight it just happened. Because there's a lot of improvisation, there's a lot of, unpredictable elements, so not every show, the shows were all very different.
Yeah.
Not just Fun Wearing Underwear, but your tours and your other concerts over the years.
Yeah. It's definitely all blurring together now. When you first started talking about it, I thought of one of the Fun Wearing Underwear performances, because my mind was on that, and I recall like the whole 20-person cast doing these improvised things together, completely in sync, and it almost felt creepy. I actually stopped doing the show shortly after that because it started feeling like a cult or something. But it was really a beautiful feeling to be that in sync with one another. I recall there being a moment where we all just knelt down on the floor at the exact same time. It seemed like everyone did it independently of each other, but we did it. And there was Lucas Crane, who's now in Woods, sitting up on a box meditating. He like meditated through the whole show, every show, and we would pester him and poke at him and stuff like that. I can remember that, and then it felt like it burst. It felt like it reached this high point, and something was wrong with it. Something was askew, or like incorrect about it, and so it popped. And I think that's been the nature of my work forever.
What about the legendary first tour of the UK, where you had a whole crowd of folks with you? Spencer Chiquitas was there, and I hear legends about that tour.
I don't know. I can't really remember the details, honestly. I do remember that tour and the feeling of it. I don't really recall particular shows, though. Do you remember, like...
Oh, yeah.
The show for yourself?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I remember a number of times. Of course, I remember a lot of times where I was like, a split second from suicide after a show, because I played appallingly, felt like absolute garbage. But there's other shows where you're like, you know what? That was one of the best shows anybody in history has ever played.
You've said that was the best Dufus show to me a few times, and I'd say like most of the time when you've said it, it's been shows that I didn't like.
You never know, yeah. That's why you got to just hope it's the best show for somebody out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's best shows, and then there's like, artistic achievements. I mean, Dufus wasn't about like, let's just get on stage and, bass, guitar, drums, play a show. Yeah. It was like, it was a happening.
Well, after you say that, it did remind me of one show, the final Dufus show. And I'd say that was probably the best Dufus show. I'm sorry you weren't there.
I know, I missed it. I saw some footage of it.
I think it was probably the best Dufus show. At least the most well-rehearsed Dufus show. We had almost 30 people, and every person...
On stage, that is.
Yes. Every person was
And in the
point.
audience, there were so many people, the place had to shut down, and everybody had to move, hundreds of people. The fire department was called. They had to move everybody out into the street, where everybody started performing together in the street for the fire brigade.
Yeah.
There's some footage on YouTube.
Yep, fireman.
Well, the thing is, I'm remembering not just Dufus ensemble shows that were great, but solo shows. I remember seeing you solo at Sidewalk Cafe, like, mind-blowing stuff, or sitting around a campfire playing some new tunes with Kimya Dawson, trading off songs, and it was like, man, the bar was set so high. So, how many albums have you recorded? Do you know offhand?
It's pretty close to 20. I'm not
20
sure.
albums. That's a lot of albums.
Yeah.
Name me like 3 that you're particularly proud of.
I'm pretty proud of the most recent one, Dufus Eth.
That's a good one.
131 seems to be
that's a classic.
That most people consider to be the classic
That
Dufus
is a classic.
song, Dufus album. And I think Last Class Blast is a really good album, lots of great songs.
Yeah.
But I don't have the album anymore because the label has run out of them and they don't send them to me.
Well, just make your own copies.
Yeah.
I guess we should wrap up because I got people waiting on me.
Yeah.
But let me think. If there's one more question, do you think that if somebody was going to make a best of Dufus compilation CD, which is something I've attempted to do myself, which included your solo work and your collaborative work and your Dufus work, and somebody was trying to boil down 12 songs that were like, out of 20 albums, that's less than one song per album. Name me 2 or 3 or 4, just a couple of songs that you think would definitely go on there.
Like fan favorites?
Yeah, well,
I mean, I
whether
guess
fan favorites or your own, that you feel
Yeah.
like are your personal achievements.
Right. Well, as far as fan favorites, Fun Wearing Underwear, Wee Moo, Jeff Louie, which is written about Jeffrey Lewis here. Jeff Lewis.
So these are all in the 131 time period.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the new album, I think Silence is the best song on there. Put it on first because I loved it so much. What's that one? Flu and Broth, I think, is an excellent song. Freedom, people love that song. I love that song. Tutu, I've played it too many times, but I still think it's good. Let's see. There's a lot of them.
Pretty good. I mean, that's
There's
leaving out a huge swath of the discography and concentrating on a couple of records, but sometimes that's the way it goes.
Babylon Calm, I think, is an excellent song.
Killer. Great recording. All right. Well, we'll leave it there for now, unless, what do you think? You got anything else?
Man. I got nothing to want to say.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Joe.
Whap.
Thanks to Jeff for bringing me on this tour.
Thanks to Pete for facilitating certain elements.